So again, I'm starting my topic for today. I'm thanking everyone for joining today's session. In today's session, we'll be picking up three prime areas. What is religion of love? So that includes three prime areas. One is religion. Then second is definitely God, and third is love. Because whenever there is a concept of religion, then God has to be there. You cannot separate the element of God from the very concept of religion. So if religion is there, that means God, the concept of God, consciousness or God has to be there. Otherwise, religion becomes incomplete. Religion is of, in essence, is of no value if there is no God. So God has to be there. So let us now first discuss the concept of God, then we'll be talking about religion and love. Hare Krishna. So a step back to understand who is God, because we did not really touch on this point, that who is God, specifically when it comes to the Eastern world or our own Sanatan Dharma. Then we have a lot of confusion around this subject itself, who is God, or most of us has this common understanding or a belief that ultimately everything is one. Ultimately, all is one. Whatever you follow, whatever you worship, all paths leads to same goal. And in reality, whether it is correct or not, we are not deciding now. And if you have any question around that, you can put your questions later at the end of the session. But yes, let us have a brief quick overview of what God is. So in our Sanatan Dharma, predominantly, originally we had our Sanatan and Dharma. You see, Sanatan, when we say Sanatan is basically word used for eternal. Eternal means Sanatan. So Sanatan Dharma originated around 5,000 plus years ago. That was the beginning of religion, at least from a modern perspective. And then from there, the Sanatan Dharma came, and then from there, other religions started originating. And then, so from Sanatan Dharma, after that, we saw Christianity came, we saw this Islam religion came, then we saw our Sikhism came, all these different religions came. Uh, if we go by the essence of religions, then yes, all religion teaches one message, and that one message is that we all as humanity or a living entity, we all are meant to love God. That is a unique message of all the religions, irrespective of the fact which faith one really professes or follows in life. So now let us specifically focus on our own Sanatan Dharma, which is known as Hindu religion. Uh, so 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 the definition of the word God, for example, in Hindi we know God means Bhagwan. So Bhag plus Van, it is a Sanskrit word, Bhag and plus Van. So it is made of two words. So Bhag means one who possesses. Uh, no, Bhag means Aishwarya. And then Van means the one who possesses. So the one who possesses different kind of opulences, he is known as Bhagavan. Now, it is being specifically defined in our Vedic scriptures by one of the Acharya. So God has, or Bhagavan has predominantly six opulences in full. So what are those six opulences? All rich, all power, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, all renunciation. These are the six opulences the word Bhagwan in itself carries all power, all reach, all beauty, all fame, all knowledge, all renunciation. So, for example, God has all these attributes in full. He has all those opulences in full. We, as a living entity, we have those opulences, but in a very, very minute quantity or in a very limited manner. Very, very limited, very, very insignificant. We may be beautiful, we may have knowledge, we may have richness, uh, we may be renunciate also, but everything is very, very limited when it comes to when we start comparing it with God. So there is no scope of comparison actually. Now, within our own Sanatan Dharma, we generally have a belief or understanding that Trinity is uh, Trinity is all equal or same. Like for example, we say Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. So most of the people have the belief that Brahma is a creator, Vishnu is a maintainer, and Shiva is a destroyer, and everyone puts them under the same footing. But is this fact? Then the answer probably would be no. It is not a reality. If you really study the Vedic scriptures deeply, then ultimately Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So Lord Krishna or Vishnu Tattva is considered as God, and rest all are considered as demigods who have been given specific responsibilities or specific charge by Lord Vishnu to carry out the different responsibilities of creation. Like for example, Brahma ji is the authority for creation, Shiva is the authority for destruction. So, but they act as a demigod because they are considered as pure devotees. And another important fact is that all these demigods are to be respected. This is very, very important because what happens when you start worshipping a particular god, then you start losing respect. So, so we have to have this clarity within our mind that if we lose respect for demigods, if we lose respect for other religions, or if we start fighting for other religions, that means we are not practicing our own religion properly. There's a problem in that area when we are not ourselves practicing religion properly, then we start then we start considering then we stop giving even respect to other religions, and this is where the biggest problem is in our society. So yes, when it comes to God, then Bhagavan means the one who possesses all opulences, and among all, yes, it is Lord Krishna. Like for example, if you look at Brahma Samhita, it is one of the Samhita being written by Brahmaji. He says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So there, Brahmaji is glorifying Lord Vishnu, and he's specifically mentioning who is Param, who is topmost. It is Lord Krishna. And then similarly, when you see Lord Shiva, whenever you see any picture of Lord Shiva, then Lord Shiva is in the mood of meditation. And once Parvati inquired from Lord Shiva that Swami, you are the topmost authority, and but I see you most of the time you are meditating on something. So on whom you are meditating when you yourself is the topmost? So there, Lord Shiva says, Aradhana Nam Devi Vishnu Aradhana Sarvottamam. So Aradhana among all the worships, the worship of Lord Vishnu is the topmost worship. That's That's the answer being given by Lord Shiva to Parvati there. So like this, if we really study our Vedic scriptures in detail, in depth, then we come to this conclusion that yes, God is one, and under God there are other demigods who are taking care of different departments, different functions, or who are taking care of different responsibilities as being given to them by the Lord Himself. Because Lord doesn't personally want to take care or get Himself involved into all the affairs of this world. He kind of delegates His task to other people, like a country, the way a country functions. A country has a prime minister, then a prime minister delegates his functions, and he has different set of ministries, and then those ministers work independently, but they are ultimately answerable or responsible to the prime minister. That is how the hierarchy works, even in our in our in our social system. Okay, so this is, I'm giving you a very high level of overview of what, who is God. This needs to be very much clear within our mind. And if anyone has any question on this, we can discuss that later, because this is a very critical subject. And unfortunately, when I look at society, we see so many man-made God, self-proclaimed God, gurus who themselves declares to be God, which is unfortunately not correct. And so self-proclaimed God basically takes advantage of their position, and ultimately they get trapped into this puja, love, and pratishta. Three things. Puja, they get worship because they declare themselves to be God. Then love, they get benefits. Their time gets material opulences also. And pratishta. Pratishta means prestige. That's what the entire world is hankering for. And even the so-called self-proclaimed God also ultimately start professing in a manner, or start preaching in a manner that yes, we are God and worship us. And we have seen the history, especially in the recent past times, when a lot of so-called self-proclaimed God actually, their reality was being exposed to the society at large. Okay, so this is broadly a discussion on the part of who is God. Now we are coming to other two aspects, which are essentially related to the subject of today, religion and love. So let us have a discussion on this. And okay, definition of religion. So the word religion in itself is, like I mentioned in the beginning, religion is, people have different set of understanding, people have different set of beliefs around it, and people have a different way of practicing religion. And according to so now we need to do a little more brainstorming. So for example, when we say the word religion, which is in Hindi it is called as dharma, but in English it is called as religion. And it is a Greek word which has come from the term religia, and it is called as, it is like a synonyms to faith. People say, okay, religion denotes faith, or religion denotes occupational duty of a living entity. So either it denotes faith, or it denotes occupational duty of a living entity. But when we define religion as faith, uh, Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of Hare Krishna movement, Srila Prabhupada always said that when we define religion as faith, then it is not a complete understanding, because so faith is a subject matter which is, yeah. So I was telling about so religion is considered as faith. Faith is a subject which can be changed. Like for example, if there are two relationships, if someone has a very good friend and they have a relationship, and the relationship among the friends, among two friends, is based on a faith that they have for each other. But it may happen that if something wrong happens between their relationship, then the faith breaks down. Then the faith which was there in the beginning, then that level of faith, or that degree of faith is not there anymore. So, so if we define the term religion as faith, then probably it is not really a complete understanding of religion. Okay, so I'll give you a simple example. So when we say religion, so religion is something which is inseparable, like an inseparable element, which defines the very nature of that specific object. You can see in the picture we have fire. So as soon as we see fire, so there are two things which you cannot separate from the fire. Wherever there would be fire, there would be heat and light naturally. You cannot element this. You cannot separate the element of heat and light from the fire. So wherever we see sugar, the nature of sugar is to give sweetness. You cannot separate sweetness from sugar. It is inseparable element of sugar. So what is dharma? Dharma is basically uh, called as natural constitutional position of a living entity, like we were discussing in our earlier sessions also, when we mentioned that jivere swarup hoy krishnera nitya das. That is a constitutional position of a living entity, to be an eternal servant of God. That is a constitutional natural propensity that we are mean to serve, but we have forgotten that relationship, and that's why we lose that, we lose the chance of serving God. So now, what is the definition of dharma as per our Vedic text? So our Vedic text specifically defines the term. What is the meaning of the term dharma? So dharma to sakshat bhagvat pranitam. So that means, what is dharma? Dharma is something which has been established by the Lord Himself. So now there is something beautiful and interesting to understand. When Lord establishes something, then that becomes a verdict, or that is a conclusive statement. You cannot change that statement, because Lord is eternal, and whatever He establishes, that also is eternal. So the concept that we are trying to derive from this is dharma is not a subject matter which can be changed with the passage of time, unless and until God really wants to change it. So dharma cannot be changed. No people, no humanity, no specific section or set of the society can ever make any change in religion, because it is something being established by the Lord Himself. Dham tu sakshat bhagvat pranitam. Because God is at. So now let us understand more. What are the words of God? Okay, fine. We say dham tu sakshat bhagvat pranitam, and Lord has spoken entire Bhagavad Gita, and then Lord has directed His representative like Brahmaji to define other Vedic text. There are so many Vedic scriptures which are available. There are so many Vedic scriptures which are even not available, which were stolen or lost or burned over a period of time in last 2-3 thousand years. But whatever is available, it is also big. Even if we try to get a glimpse of what is available, that is also like a big chamber dictionary, when we can learn a lot, we can apply a lot in our life, and we can be on a true path of religion and make our life successful. So this is the definition of religion. Religion is something being established by the Lord Himself. Now, let us move further. So it's one set of the definition. It's not that we confine this definition, because in Sanskrit, the beauty of the Sanskrit language is that the same word may have different meanings depending on where those words have been applied, how those words have been applied. So dharma can also denotes to the fact of occupational duty. Occupational duty, occupational duty of a living entity. If, like, for example, if we are here in the discussion room right now, and somebody who has a family, who has a family, and then it becomes a responsibility of male member of the family to take care of the family nicely. It goes without saying. It is a standard expectation. So it is a occupational duty of member, or that male member of the family to do that, to fulfill that duty. So that also becomes, in a way, dharma for that individual living being. Okay, now let us see what our Vedic text further talks about it. Okay, before we get into it further, now there are different levels of worship. We see in our society a lot of people practices religion at different level of understanding. They have faith in God, and they like to do something. They like to visit temple, or they organize some event. They like to donate something. Everyone do something or other in our in Indian society to a larger extent. Now these different levels of worship can be divided in predominantly four set of categories. One is when you are worshipping God out of fear. So like we say, Sankat Kate Mite Sab Pira. So, so people worship God when they are fearful of the situations of this world, fearful of what will happen to them. They are afraid. They don't know what can happen to them at next moment of their life. So out of fear, because they have faith in God, and they think, okay, fine, I don't have any other option. Let me worship God out of fear. And it is fine. It is one level of understanding, and we are not completely against it, but it is one level of understanding. Then the next level of understanding is when we are worshipping God, or when we are professing any set of practicing and professing any set of religion out of some expectation. Out of expectation, how it happens? Like we have some, we have some, uh, we want something. Okay, we are ready to worship. We will visit temple, and but we will pray to the Lord ki please fulfill my daily needs. I go to temple and I pray to God, yes, God, please give me this, please give me this, please give me this. And sometimes when God is happy, and He probably gives you, and that basically keeps your faith intact, and you keep on, worshiping God with that mindset. So it is called as out of expectation or hopes, that yes, I want something from God in return, some material benefit, where the benefit can be defined in material terms. And then third is when we worship God out of duty. We are not really expecting something from God. We are not fearful. It is another level wherein we worship God just as a matter of our duty. So in duty, what happens? We think, okay, God has given us life. God has given us maybe nice family to live with. God has given us good amount of resources. Then let us just worship. So He has given us so much to us. It becomes our duty to worship Him. We are not expecting anything, but we are doing it as a matter of duty. So this is a better level. This is another level, higher level than the two earlier levels. We are doing something out of duty. We worship God out of duty. But then there is another level. Another level is the level when you do it out of love. It is not your duty, but it becomes spontaneous. You have understood that you have a relationship with God, and when you have a relationship with God, then you are doing it because you love God. It's not that you are bound to do it because of the duty, but it is a next level or maybe the highest level of devotion when you perform certain actions in your life to express your love for God. This is the next level of worship. So these are the four different levels at which people generally worship God, either out of fear, out of expectation, or out of duty, and then finally out of love. And ultimately, it is expected that we all actually start worshiping God out of love. But yes, it may not happen overnight. So if people are at fear, it is fine. If people are at expectation, it is fine. If people are doing it as a matter of their duty, that is also fine. But we should know, yes, this is my ultimate aim. I want to worship God because I love God. I don't want to worship God just out of fear, expectation, or some duty. I want to worship God because I have a spontaneous attraction for the Lord. So this is what is like, this is how a devotional, and in fact, in Bhagavad Gita, also Krishna defines four kind of people comes to me: Arth, Athartu, Jikyasu, Jnanina cha Bhartarshabha in the seventh chapter. So Arth means those who are in economic, and those Arthartu, Jikyasu, Jnanina cha Bhartarshabha. So one who are like disturbed or diseased, or second is who are in economical benefit, then third is those who are inquisitive, and fourth is who are knowledgeable, jnani. So these four set of people ultimately come to worship me. Okay, fine, let's move further. So these are the different levels of relationship. Now, what is the supreme occupational duty of a living entity or humanity? So this is coming in from Srimad Bhagavatam. We talked about dharma. We know what is the definition of dharma. Then what is the general perception of the society about the term dharma. And now we are coming to a point that what is the expectation of the Lord when it comes to the highest occupation that a humanity should have. Save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaja ahetuki apratihata yatma suprasiddhati. The supreme occupation for all humanity. So it is not now, you see here, no division is happening. It is for all humanity, is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto God. So, loving devotional service, that is our religion. That is what we all ultimately should aspire for in our life. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted. So these two words are very important. When there is a love, when we love someone, so love is not that okay, we are loving someone because we want something from that person. Then it is not love. Then it is simply we are trying to. It is simply we are trying to satisfy our selfish desires. So ultimately we are not supposed to do that when it comes to God. We are not here to do business with God. So unmotivated, it should not have any motive attached to it. I want to do devotion with this motive. In the beginning, You may start your journey with that intention, or with that having some some motives, but ultimately you have to learn that you have to come to a platform when you are worshiping God with no specific motive. It is a spontaneous relationship that you have with God. And then the second word which is used here is uninterrupted. Uninterrupted means that it has to be continuous. It should not stop because of the situations in our life. Sometimes people come to us and then they tell, oh, we were practicing Krishna consciousness nicely, but somehow this happened in our family, or this problem came, and then we could not really carry on. So we had to break it down. But this is what is not the pure devotion. So at the pure devotional platform, or a pure love, at the platform of love, then it will be flowing continuously. It will not be having any stop. So it's we can give an example to this. It's like if there's a bottle full of water. Sorry, if there's a bottle full of oil in it, and if you start pouring that oil, then it doesn't stop. There's no breakage unless and until it finishes. It continuously flows down. There's no break that happens when the oil is falling down. So similarly, our devotion to the Lord should be like, it should not stop. It should flow continuously. That is what is the expectation when it comes to a religion. Now, for many of us, this looks like, oh, what we are really talking about is not practical, or maybe it is too much for us. Maybe we are not at this level. It's okay if you're not at this level. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. But at least you keep this within your heart, or you keep this spark ignited within you, that I have to achieve this level before I die. I have to consciously work on this. I have to consciously work on myself. I have to consciously work on my devotional journey, so that I can gradually come to this platform. That is what the whole idea is. Otherwise, in society, there are so many people who are practicing so many different things, but nobody is really able to reach to this platform. Or there are very few fortunate, humble souls who are actually practicing religion on this platform. Very few. Otherwise, on the face, a lot of people can show a lot of things, but what they are from inside is very difficult to even even evaluate for an individual. So this is a supreme religion for a living entity that God is declaring. Okay, so what is the perfection of life? So everyone wants that, yes, we should make our life perfect, or everyone wants that we should be at the our life should be at the genius of perfection. So so different people have a different level of understanding in terms of what what a perfection of life can be. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who basically broadcasted this message of Krishna consciousness, or Hare Krishna Mahamantra all over the world, uh, through his empowered representative Srila Prabhupada, he basically told that Prema Pumartho Mahan, the highest perfection of life for any human being is to attain love of Godhead. That is the highest perfection of humanity. Now, now when we use this term, it looks very good, and but to to live life on this platform is 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 a time taking process for which we really need to consciously invest our time and energies for a right purpose that we are really looking forward to have. Many a times I meet people and ask them or request them, please spare out your time to understand this message of God. Then majority of the people in society have this understanding that they don't have time for this. So their perfection or their definition of what perfection of life is different. But what is the ideal definition of perfection of life is what we are talking about. So we have to gradually awaken this within our heart. Yes, okay, let us at least theoretically at this stage of our life, let us keep this concept alive within our consciousness or within our mind, and let us keep on progressively working towards it so that we all can have this perfection, and everyone can have this perfection. It's not that it is only restricted to a specific section of the society. It is open to everyone. Even you see, right now we have a situation of lockdown, and it is a reasonable expectation that people ideally should have time to actually understand this message of God, but very very few people or very less people are still really thinking about giving their valuable time for this cause, because they are still busy, because we will be busy forever. This is the nature of this world. We will remain busy throughout our life because we have not really understood the importance or the need of understanding the message of God. So I thank all of you who are sparing out time to understand this message in spite of whatever is going across the world. And that is what is like the best investment that one can do at this stage of life. We all know it's a difficult situation, but like I always say, better use of a bad bargain or best use of a bad bargain. We know that the situation is not good, but let us make a best use of it by understanding this knowledge, and by igniting that spark that all of us have within us. This is what the life is all about. So this is a perfection of life. So the perfection of life or perfection of any religion in this world, for us to come to this platform, that we have to learn the art how we can love God. We don't have to learn. We don't have to learn the art of living. We have to learn the art how we can love Godhead. That is what is the expectation of God from all of us. Okay, moving on. Yes. So now let us do a little analysis of the terminology love, because we initially talked about religion. Like I told you that today's discussion is basically in today's discussion is kind of divided in three parts. First, we talked about who is God. Second, we talked about religion, how a religion should be understood, what is the true definition of the term religion is. Now we are getting into a more deeper zone. It is a very deep zone of understanding love, because when we say love within the realm of this material world, that love is very very insignificant. I would say that love is very very limited to the love that one can experience for God. It is like altogether a different level. Let me explain you how it is different. So when we say the material world means the world in which we all live today. This entire material world is is known as a perverted reflection or shadow of the real love or shadow of the spiritual world. So whatever we see here, it is simply a reflection or shadow. So in Bhagavad Gita, the example comes like if you go near the if you go near a river, and then near the river there is a tree, and then that tree basically is standing there, and the shadow of the tree is coming in that river. So that shadow, this word is being compared to that shadow which is coming in the water of the river. But the real tree is there, just standing there. So everything that exists here is just shadow. So when we talk about love within this material world, it is a shadow of the real love that exists in the spiritual world. So, for example, when we say about love for this material world, so at one level, the way the love is being perceived, that people generally love, uh, in fact, okay. So people generally love each other to fulfill their own desires, more or less. This is what the love is about. So if my desires are getting satisfied, or if I am happy with that XYZ relationship or the person to whom I love, then 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 it is fine. The relationship goes well. So that is one level of definition of love in this world. I love someone to keep myself satisfied. If he or she is keeping me happy, then okay, fine, our relationship is going good. This is called selfish pursuits in the name of love. The second level of love is is the expression of a kind of selfless love, like you can say a mother loves a child. A mother loves a child, and that relationship is kind of manifestation of selfless love that exists within this material world. But still, it is also far beyond the real love that that exists between God and human. It is beyond. The love between God and human it surpasses all the love that we can see within this world. And that definition even we cannot discuss here. So so now let us so this is first part, analysis of the word love. It is a perverted reflection or shadow of real love of the spiritual world. So when we become advanced in devotion, when we start practicing the path of devotion sincerely, then we start experiencing the glimpse, or then we start getting the drops of that love of God that exists. Second, second foundation. Okay, when we say love, love means there is a lover, there is a lover and beloved. So, and it's like a relationship between two personalities. A person, and there's a person on one side, there's a person on other side. And a foundation of any relationship within this world is dependent on one key factor, and that key factor is called as exchange. I hope everyone follows. Relationship governs by the principle of exchange, जिसको हम which we call as आदान प्रदान. If there is no exchange happening, then probably love is just in the air. Love does not really love does not really work on a practical level. It may be just some speculative or some mechanical or emotional thought. That's it. But foundation of a relationship is governed by the principle of exchange. Simple, the exchange is expressed through the means of services that we kind of, we can say, give and take. Now you take any example of any person you love most in this world. So the relationship between you and that person is completely governed by the exchange of services, in terms of you give something to that person or you take something from that person. Give and take, and it is spontaneous, and there is no wrong, there is nothing wrong about it. So the principle that I am trying to establish is relationship demands service. The benchmark of a relationship is exchange, and exchange is being expressed via the principle of service, of giving and taking. So it is not only giving, it is also taking. That's how you express your love. So it's not that when you are serving God, uh, somebody may say, okay, we are serving God is fine, but what is really coming in return? So initially it becomes really difficult for one to actually do that calculation also, what we are really getting back in return. So exchange is expressed through the means of service. Then knowledge and practical is essential to develop pure emotions of love for God. This is very, very important. Okay, so I'll just give you an overview of what I want to help you to understand through this particular sentence. Um, so knowledge and practical. So we have seen a lot of people at times, they they tell, okay, we love God to our life, we are ready to do anything for God. So they proclaim or they declare that we love God, we love God, we love God, we love God. So this is called as just declaring without having any action on it. So that love is then incomplete. So then the element of practicality is not visible there. I can declare day in and day out to the entire world that I love God, I love God, I love God, but it doesn't really serve the purpose unless and until I act on what I really say. Like a relationship I explained above. So like a relationship, if I love my beloved, then I have to do something practical. I cannot just keep on telling her in the morning and day out that I love you, I love you. I have to demonstrate my love. So some practical action has to be followed when you say that yes, you love God. Second most important aspect in this is knowledge. Knowledge is very, very important. Otherwise, I have seen a lot of people, uh, they just become bhavuk. We have this term bhavuk. वो भाव में बहे जा रहा है. It's like people try to show, okay, we don't need any knowledge about God. We already know everything. And then it might happen then that they are crying for God day in and day out. Or it might happen that they are they're just taking the emotions for God very cheap. They think, okay, we can very easily understand God. So I have seen a lot of we in India, a lot of people exist like that. I don't need to name them. So they generally do not believe in the concept of gaining knowledge. So my simple request to those people is, then why did Krishna wrote Bhagavad Gita? So there was no need of writing such a big book with 700 shlokas if there was no need of knowledge. So knowledge is essential and practical is also essential. Then only we can develop pure sentiments or emotions for God. And then we will be eventually progressing towards developing our love for God. This is what is all about religion of love. So here my request to everyone is, Gain knowledge, apply practical. Don't just be dependent on one aspect. If you just become dependent on one aspect, then you may not be able to really get the desired fruit of the love for God. The desired fruit of love for God is, it is incomparable. It has, nobody can compare that desired fruit of love. What is that? Lord is known as Bhavagrahi Janardana. That means he accepts the mood or sentiments or feelings of a devotee. But we have to prepare ourselves. We have to prepare ourselves in a manner that yes, God is God is actually looking forward and waiting to express to accept that mood. So for that we have to we have to work on theory, we have to work on practical, both aspects. We cannot just rely on one aspect of the game. Then that love is complete, then that love is matured. We want to give a matured love. We just do not want to give some hanky panky form of so-called sentiments in the in the life of people in this world. Okay, analysis of the word love. This is, and the same thing goes with, we when we see a lot of people who practices who teaches religion to the world, we have to ensure, are those people talking about God, or they are just talking about humanity? Like people say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, everything belongs to God. If you really want to say, then you have to combine that knowledge also. Or you say, we love humanity because ultimately humanity has come from God. Ultimately, we all are part and parcel of God. There are some practitioners of so-called religious institution, when people say, let us love every individual. It is fine. We are ready to love every individual. But before that, we have to learn the art of loving God also. If we forget that art and we just focus on one aspect, that we have to learn the art of loving humanity because humanity has been originated from God, then we will miss the point. We have to practice and we have to showcase the word, both aspects. Then that would represent real love for humanity. Okay. Now symptoms of love. This is Bhagavad Gita. I'll quickly touch upon what does the love really means. This is 10.9 of Bhagavad Gita. One of my favorite shloka. Machida madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathantastamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. So they are always thinking about God. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from. Now you see the important point. So when they are talking about God, when they are discussing about God, when they are rendering service for God, what is happening? They derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. See, this is what is like a fruit. It's like a return gift from the God that comes. So when a devotee who is sincerely trying to serve God, who is sincerely uh, helping others to understand the subject of God, then they derive great satisfaction. They are fully satisfied within themselves, and they are also blissful. Satisfaction is one level, bliss is another level. So you are satisfied from life, you are blissful in your life. From always enlightening one another. Enlightening means enlightening with the knowledge of God and conversing about me. So conversations. So we also have conversations, we also have discussions, we talk to devotees, we help them in their understanding of God, how they can also clear their doubts if they are having any doubts on this path of understanding the subject of God. So this is what is is a gift that God is ready to give. Those who are conscious, yes, yes, we want to devote our life to God, and God is waiting when we are ready to do that in our life. So these are some of the, you can say, some of the external symptoms of devotees or their activities by which they don't have to showcase, but by which people in society can actually test. It's like a test. Yes, is this devotee doing this? This is one aspect of it, not just the only aspect, but one of the aspect of it. Devotees talk about God, devotees share their knowledge with people in society. Yes, we know we are helping people to understand. This is what God is confirming here. Last, I think, in summary, so we discussed about who is God. We started with that concept. Then we discussed about what is religion, what is the general understanding of religion in society. Then we discussed about perfection of human form of life when we brought the concept of love, and then we discussed some related aspects to love, and then we talked about the the devotees who who are busy in glorifying the message of God. And now we are here at the summary part, which is again very important, and it is connected to tomorrow's topic. Now tomorrow would be our last topic of discussion for this workshop, at least for this workshop, but yes, we'll continue the momentum. I really thank all of you for sparing out your precious time, for listening me, for giving me an opportunity to prepare my consciousness more and more into God consciousness. So in summary, what I'm trying to say here, the summary is, so we have to establish, we have to know that we have a relationship with God. This is called as Sambandha Gyan. So so we all, like for instance, in the beginning, we can say we all are servant of God. That is the essence of all religions of this world. No matter which religion do you belong to, it doesn't really matter. Then second aspect is abhideha. Abhideha. Abhideha means the process, understanding the process. Theoretically, we know that yes, we are servant of God. We have understood that we are not the body, we are spirit, soul. We understood that yes, God exists. Now we also get a point that yes, we have a relationship with God. So then comes the process aspect. Process aspect is like a detailed one. So tomorrow's session would be more linked on the process aspect, a videha part. We know we have a relationship, what needs to be done next in terms of practical. And then third is prayojan. We discussed about prayojan here in this today's session itself, when we talked about prema pumartho mahan, the ultimate uh, aim or the perfection of life of anyone is to love God, to attain love of God. That's the ultimate aim of life of every individual in this world. Uh, with this, I'll be concluding my talks. Before that, I would like to add just one thing here, which is again essential. Uh, so, when it comes to religion, please help and understand one fact of life, that religion is not dependent on which family, in which family you have taken birth. So many times people designate their religion from this aspect, that okay, I have taken birth in XYZ family, and this XYZ family belongs to this XYZ religion, so I should practice this religion. It doesn't work like this, because religion is not dependent on the body. Religion is a subject of soul. Soul is independent from the body. You may you may think yourself to be body, but that's where we are actually. That's where we started building the theme that we are not the body. As soon as we come to know the fact that we are not the body, ultimately my religion is not dependent on the family in which I am born and which religion my family actually practices. It doesn't matter. It becomes immaterial then. This is very, very important. Like, for example, people say, okay, I belong to this family, and in this family, this religion is practiced, so I follow this religion. Maybe it is fine, maybe it may not be fine, because that's not the criteria of practicing religion. With this note, I'll be finally concluding, and then we will be. You are welcome to ask questions, whatever questions you have. You can raise your questions, queries, doubts, or comments on this subject. And so, final concluding word is the path of devotion or religion is very, very deep. It is very, very deep. And to understand and to experience that path of pure love of God, you need a constant guidance and support through which you can validate. It's like a process of validation, because religion is something which is being practiced inside. Ultimately, it's a journey. It's your internal journey. Everyone may not be, busy in glorifying by giving talks and all. Ultimately, you are practicing yourself internally, and when you are practicing internally, and if you're not asking from people, or if you're not validating that am I going on the right path, then it might happen that you may lose the track. So you need a constant guidance and support. For that, you need a regular, we called it as counseling or consultation. Like we go to a doctor for a regular consultation. So we need a regular guidance, monitoring, support, consultation from people who have taken a step forward in their spiritual journey, and they have understood that yes, the aim of life or the goal of life or my religion is to love God. I'm ultimately meant for this purpose. I can practice other aspects, like I have duty towards family. So that is also one occupational duty. That is also considered in one way a religion of my life. But should I be dependent on that only? The answer is no. We should not just be dependent on that. It is just an aspect. Don't think that if you are taking care of your family nicely, then that suffice. Then everything is done. It doesn't work like that. So those who are practicing spirituality or even otherwise, they should know this as a matter of fact that yes, we have to ultimately get out of this thought process that if I'm taking care of my family, taking care of the family is my religion. That is the need which cannot be neglected, but you cannot take it as an excuse for practicing religion and for developing your love for God. With this note, I will be concluding my discussion.